Hello, my name is Stacey Couch. I am a spiritual director that specializes in shamanic healing and archetypal consulting. And this is my dog Diesel. Those of you who have watched some of my videos before have seen him wander through and do various cameos. And I thought you might like to know that he's with us today and will be wandering in and out. For your reference, my website is wildgratitude.com. Today, I'm here to speak with you more about this topic of spiritual direction. And in spiritual direction, there's a lot of different things that we cover. So I did an overview video about a month back, and now I'm going to start delving into each of those individual topics so that you can get a really good idea of what happens as a result of spiritual direction, and also what happens during a spiritual direction session. The first thing that we're going to talk about today is deepening your relationship with the divine. This sounds pretty vague, pretty general. I think it's worth really speaking specifically about what this looks like, what we actually do to help deepen your relationship with the sacred in a spiritual direction session. The first of this that we do almost on a continual basis is exploring your beliefs. It's one thing to know what you don't believe, and it's another thing altogether to actually find out what you do. You know, oftentimes people know, well, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that, I don't think this is true, I also don't believe in this. So we're often good at identifying what we've cast off, what we've decided that we no longer identify with in regards to our tribe. But when it comes to identifying, okay, what do I believe? That can get a little trickier. And some of you may already have a really firm belief system and have worked it out over many decades and lots of research and inquiry. And others of you may be in a time where everything's in upheaval and you're not sure what you believe. For both of those groups and everything in between, it's very worthwhile to explore what your beliefs are, because we always need to be checking in, because those beliefs are what we base our decisions, what we base the choices we make, how we treat other people, how we treat ourselves. Those beliefs are integral to the way we live our lives and form our experience. It's really important to get in touch with those on a regular basis. So what we do as part of this exploration of your belief is we'll consider too what your labels are. So do you... The sun is right in my eyes. This is the brilliance of working outdoors with the trees. The sun, if we sit and watch it in the sky, does not perceptibly move. But if we stand in a little thin line of shade, we notice it moves quite quickly in the matter of minutes, actually. Oh, all of that aside. So labels, when we are working with labels, let's, in a spiritual direction session, one of the things that we often check in with is labels. What do you call your soul, your spirit, your energy body, your higher self? What kind of language do you use, and how much do you vary that language, or how much do you adhere to certain ways of saying things? And what do you call God? Do you say God? Do you say goddess? Do you say higher power, source, creator, great spirit? There's a lot of different nomenclatures, right, for the one that moves through all things. So that's another piece worth discovering is, okay, what labels do I use for that? And which am I comfortable with? And get really thoughtful about that. Spend some time. Why do I use that label? Why is that important to me? What is the background or the history behind that? And it's also important in the inverse. So finding your labels and finding what you call things and what words and names have meaning for you, and strengthening those and really understanding what's behind the scenes in terms of your belief system around that. And then it's also important to go ahead and relax some of your triggers around other labels. It's pretty common for me to run across people who are really uncomfortable using the word or the name God. It really jolts them. It's really, they do everything they can to avoid using that name. And because of a lot of the history behind it, the associations that they have with it that are not positive ones. And that's just an example. Other people are actually not very comfortable even using the word prayer. And I don't have any judgment one way or another, but I think that it limits us in our ability to have a conversation about the sacred if there are certain words that are off limits. And it also limits our room to our maneuvering ability to maneuver within the spiritual realms and explore different teachings, because if we can't use certain words, there's certain really valuable teachings that will be off limits to you that you might really benefit from. So to be able to take the charge or the trigger out of those words for you so that you can really open up and be able to experience the sacred wherever it is also a really important part of spiritual direction. So in identifying those triggers and then being able to relax the charge or the negativity that you feel around it. Then this actually leads into the next part of exploring your beliefs. And that has to do with opening up overall to other people. So that gives you the opportunity to find similarities between what you are studying and what someone else of a different faith is studying or contemplating. This gives you the opportunity to really understand that at the heart of every faith or religion, that there is ultimately the same teachings about compassion, about mindfulness, about conscience, about presence, being in the present moment. All of these things, if you go to the heart of any faith, you find these same teachings. And so by being able to take away your triggers or charges around certain words, around certain things, you're able to then start to open up to other people and other faiths, and your spiritual life becomes much more expansive, and you have a lot more options in terms of things that you can benefit from and engage with and also feel understood by, right? Because a lot of this is about wanting to feel understood as well as to understand what's out there. And so it's much easier to feel understood if you are able to meet in a lot of different areas, to be able to find a lot of different things that when you get to the core that you resonate with. It's one thing to feel like an outsider and then another to feel like you're inside of the whole. And I think that's a big part of how to deepen your relationship with the divine. Also, another aspect of this ability of spiritual direction to help you deepen your relationship with the divine is to help you learn and grow in your spiritual life. It's really to help you get clear about what interests you, to really start to think about, what do I want to study? Because there's a lot, right? It's a huge field. It's thousands, it's millennia old. Has an incredible amount of variation within the whole field of a spiritual path. It's a pretty general thing to say. So what does a spiritual path look like for you? Where do you feel drawn? Really, you can do it that simply. You can just go to what draws you, to what some people call it following your heart or following your intuition, following a calling. Any of those ways of speaking about it describe that pull, that draw that we feel to specific lines of inquiry or contemplation, to specific ways of exploring the divine. And that's what we do in spiritual directions. We get really into what interests you. What do you want to spend your time studying about? What have you been curious about and you don't know anything about? Or what do you continue to find yourself coming back to over and over and over again? It's really great to check in on that on a regular basis and just make sure, because sometimes we feel drawn in a different direction. We've been really devoted to one path for an extended period of time. Then all of a sudden we're kind of nudged or pulled a different direction. And we can feel a little bit like we're being disloyal to that devotion that we had before. Those are all things that come up in a spiritual direction session. We talk through that so that you're able to move forward in a way that you feel good about. So once we get clear about what your interests are, then we'll go ahead and map out how you're going to explore that. How do you learn? What works for you? So some people really benefit from reading. Oops, sorry, that was Diesel bumping the tripod. Some of you really benefit from learning, from reading. Others of you are more auditory. You would rather listen to a course or even watch a video. The great thing, or be in person with someone, the great thing in this day and age is that you have all of these options available to you in terms of how you access this information that you're looking for and really be able to soak it in, right? So you're not restricted to only learning through books like it used to be a couple hundred years ago, or through spoken word. So you have a lot of options. We explore those and then figure out where to go. There can be a really great sense of overwhelm when you get so excited and enter into a new field. And that's one of the things I help you with too during spiritual direction. And the last piece that I want to talk about in regards to deepening your relationship with the divine is this idea of desecularization. It's kind of a long word, but if you understand the word secularize, we can start there. So secularize means to separate, put two things apart. So we have secularized in the United States, the church and state. We live in a secularized society. And we secularize a lot of things, separate, differentiate a lot of things in our lives. And one of the best examples, simplest examples I can think of is this example of work and home. So a lot of people have their work life and the people they talk with at work and their persona, who they are at work, and then they come home and they have their home life, their family life, and who they are with their family. It's two totally different worlds. And so they're living, in essence, a secularized life. There's also people who are way different with their friends than they are with their family. So you can think, I'm sure, of an example for yourself of areas in your life where you're a different person one place than you are another. And so you feel like you can't always be yourself, right? You might feel like you can be yourself at home, and then at work you don't feel like you can be yourself, or vice versa. Some people really feel like themselves at work and not so much at home. And this same thing happens in our spiritual life, where we feel like we have our spiritual life and it's here in this area over by itself. We do it on our own, or we do it in a church, in a building on Sundays. It has a very set kind of boundary around it. And then there's the rest of our life. And it can leave us feeling really disconnected from source, from God, from as the heavenly, sacred, the holy. So many people believe, and falsely so, that to be able to live their spiritual life every minute of the day, to be able to have a desecularized life, integrated life, where they're living who they are spiritually every moment, they believe that they have to have a job like me, be a spiritual director, practice spiritual guidance with people, maybe have a profession in the healing arts, maybe be a writer, maybe be a lecturer or host workshops. They really believe that they have to have some sort of business of their own and be working in the self-help or spiritual guidance fields. And this could be the furthest thing from the truth, to be honest. Really, living your spiritual life every moment of the day doesn't mean going around and constantly talking about your spiritual life. It means going around and constantly practicing your spiritual life. That's why they call it a spiritual practice, right? It's like, that's because we go around and practice. And that's what we do in spiritual direction. We talk about, well, how connected or disconnected do you feel to the sacred, to the divine throughout your day? And how can we start to infuse your day with hits of the spiritual practice that has you feeling like you are more whole, like you don't have to be two different people, like you can be yourself and absolutely authentic. And this just naturally, by doing that kind of practice, by really bringing who you are in your spiritual life into your daily life, can deepen your relationship with the divine far more profoundly than you may ever guess. So that's a really big part of the work we do in spiritual direction together. Great. So that's what I have for you today in regards to spiritual direction and this idea of how it helps you deepen your relationship with the divine. If you would like to learn more about what I do as a spiritual director and or schedule a session with me to go into this art of spiritual direction, go ahead and click on this link and it'll take you over to my website where you can do that. As always, please give the video a thumbs up, and I would love to hear your comments below so that we can have a dialogue. I'll be sure to reply to you. And I look forward to meeting with you in the next video that I'll have about spiritual direction. Have a wonderful day.